Okay, hi, I'm Rene. I work here at Tractive as Android developer, and I'm also AI champion, as mentioned before. And I'm going to present about design to code with AI. So a quick overview. I'm just giving you a quick background about the idea behind it, then a short introduction about our design system we use here at Tractive, then how I started originally implementing it, and how I actually found the path to success in a way. Then the live demo, which is gonna be tricky, but I'm praying that it works out. And then some key learnings that you might need yourself if you want to implement something similar, or it might help you. So first, the idea and background. So my core idea was, as an Android developer, we do have our designs in Figma, and I'd like to generate Jetpack Compose code, so basically UI code on Android, based off of that Figma design that adheres to our design system, which I think can then use as a blueprint or as a base that I can further extend or adapt to fully match the created design on Figma. So a short introduction to our design system. I'll keep it very brief, but we have colors, spacings, icons, illustrations, even corner radius and everything defined in Figma. And we use those building blocks, I think they're called primitives for us, and build atoms, which are, for example, buttons. Can you see the cursor? Yeah. Like a button here would be an atom, for example, or maybe like this closing button here. And we use those and combine them into molecules, which would be a card like this, and there's a further extensions for whole screens then. So that's basically how our design system is built up. So basically block by block that combines different atoms, for example, to create molecules and whatever. And as a first base for implementation, I thought my initial approach would be extracting a blueprint from our whole design system. So it's basically built in its own module in the app and consists of many different files and constantly evolves depending on what our designers think is the new stuff. And then as a second step, retrieve the Figma design. And as a third step, prompt like a pro, hopefully, to get it all to work, tie it all together, feed it into Copilot, and generate everything. That was my initial approach. So first step was extracting the design system blueprint. As I mentioned before, we use Compose on Android, which is, you can imagine if you're familiar with React, like component-based, you build designs with components, basically. And as I mentioned before, the design system is growing and it's huge right now. So I thought the wise idea would be extracting all of this, feeding the AI only the relevant information to get a better result. What I exactly extracted was on Compose, you have functions for each component. So I thought it would be wise to extract the function headers. So just that the AI knows what properties are available. And furthermore, custom enums and data classes that are used by the component. For example, for button size, we have DS button size, medium, large, etc. And also a list of all available icons or illustrations. So an example would be here on the left, you would see a concrete implementation of a DS button, which is longer than fit on the screenshot. And on the right, my extracted version, which would basically say, okay, in the design, it's called button. For us, it's called DS button. It has these parameters. They are longer. I cut them off here to fit on the slide. And I also provide the direct file path to that file. So my idea was basically to kind of help the AI with that. And how I extracted it was pretty simple, actually. Like I used reflection with a library called Consist. It uses static code analysis. And my idea was basically every time you change the design system, a task would run that would regenerate these extracted files. And caching would prevent, if I build once, like the task get cached, and it would prevent retriggering of that generation task every build you do, basically. And yeah, that's how I set it up. And then to connect Figma with Copilot, there was this option that was pretty fresh. That was, because I started with this early July, that was basically using an MCP from Figma to Copilot, which an MCP you can imagine similarly. It's not correct. It stands for Model Context Protocol, but it's basically, you can imagine it's in a way like an API, but it's just much more than that. It gives context from an application to an LLM, and it can, in the case of Figma, for example, request an image of the design or some JSON or even the design system that's behind it. Like it's much stronger than just a simple API. So to use that, you need to provide the MCP with a basic Figma design, and then that's pretty much it. But you have to use the desktop app right now, and it's currently still in beta, and you can only do it via localhost from what I am aware. Maybe it's changed. It's been a month since I originally used it, so things evolve fast. But early on, I also realized that extracting the JSON from the design I want to generate the code for would also lead to better results. So I did that, and there are many plugins you can use. I just used one that's called JSON Snapshot. Then the question was how I prompted. So that's the third step. Initially, I just asked Gemini for a prompt. I told it what I want to do, and it spat me out a long prompt, basically, with role, context, input source, output goal, everything, basically. And I used this and also fed it my blueprint files as a reference. I told it, hey, look into composable functions if you need some design system components. Look into, I don't know, icons, for example, if you want to find the icons, and so on. So the whole prompt grew and grew over time up to 2.5 pages in Google Docs. And additionally, lastly, I provided the JSON, as mentioned before. I provide this as parameter that the user had to input, and the link to the Figma as well. But then I realized if I really want to use this in production, so to say, I don't want to copy over the whole prompt every time I'm going to use this. So I thought what's possible here. And on Android Studio, or in general, for Copilot, you have the Copilot instructions markdown. And it explicitly states in the documentation you should not use this to reference other files or something like that. But I used it for exactly that, because that was the only option on Android Studio. Because on VS Code, for example, there you can define custom prompts in a prompts markdown, which is unfortunately not supported in Android Studio right now. So the way I did it was just provide the Copilot instructions MD, and at the top right, if I write the following comment, do everything that's defined under the comment XYZ section, basically. And that worked. One last thing, the Copilot instructions markdown is read into Copilot every time you interact with it, so it is always context aware with it out of the box. So I also thought of what model to use, and we here at Tractive had these ones available, so I tried them all. And I found out that Cloud 4 Sonnet works best, followed by ChatGPT and Gemini. It has the largest context window, but it would die sometimes. Like, I would feed it in all my data, and suddenly it would say server error or internal server error and just crash. So that was a bit sad. So my full workflow then was, we have the design system here, we have a Gradle task, which is the build system on Android, which runs on every build that has some changes to the design system, generates my blueprint files for different blueprint files, basically. Then I have my Figma design, which I connect to my prompt via the MCP and the JSON as well. And my prompt magically ties everything together and outputs a Kotlin file with the whole design. But unfortunately, that didn't work as expected. Sometimes I would get perfect output, like it was really basically one-to-one to what was shown in the design. But I also had many cases where it was not usable at all. And my end goal was to have some blueprint I can build up on and not waste time, basically. And I played around a lot by asking Copilot, hey, why did you not consider this or that? Or I told you explicitly to use this or that, and it didn't for some reason. And I found out, for example, the blueprint files were not read properly, just read the first 50 lines. And even if I threatened it or told it, hey, you must use, like, read the whole file. It wouldn't do it. No matter, like, it was depressing, to be honest. And what I also noticed, the prompt was way too complex. 2.5 pages was just way too much, and I put in so many unnecessary details. I tried to improve the prompt also by iterating over it multiple times. As I mentioned before, the MCP, for example, can also get a design image, basically. So I would notice, for example, the icons would sometimes be wrong. So I tell it, hey, once you're finished, get the image from the MCP, verify your design with the image you get from the MCP, check if everything's correct, if all the icons are correct, but it didn't help anything. And what I also noticed, the JSON itself that I exported had some ambiguity. I hope that's pronounced correctly. That led to some UI elements being added out of nowhere, or it just didn't fit what was visually there on Figma. So at this point, to be honest, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna get something to work reliably. And I originally posted a talk before I even built it, so that was a bit scary. But more about the JSON ambiguity, here's an example. So you can see here we have the property name icon plus badge plus toggle, and it's set to true. And in this design specifically, there was only the icon set, which was later defined somewhere in the JSON. And I asked the AI, why did you add the toggle? And it just told me, hey, because here in the property, icon plus badge plus toggle, it said true. So I added a toggle, which was not visible in the design. And things like that added up and just caused me headaches, to be honest. And another thing, that's I would say the blue screen of death for the Copilot. When you get this error, oops, maximum tool attempts reached, like the AI basically loses some context. A tool attempt, or I ask Gemini for what are tools, but basically all the file lookups, everything the Copilot needs to look up itself, that falls under tools, to keep it short, and it has a limited amount of that. I don't know if it's model specific, to be honest, but once you get this and you're not finished with the first result, first output, it's gonna fail, or it's not gonna be good. So then, based off all the issues I faced, I took a step back, and I just noticed, because Copilot's output is pretty good. You see exactly what it does. It tells you, I'm now reading this file, I'm now trying this, etc. So I figured that it would primarily use the JSON that I put in, and in most cases also the blueprint files. The MCP was completely ignored unless I forced it to use it through, for example, the image comparison. And I also noticed that the agent would look up files on its own anyways. So for example, if I told in the blueprint file, hey, there's this button component defined like this, it would sometimes even ignore it and just look up the DS button component on its own. And I also questioned why, or if writing a prompt in the style of you're in the role of really helps. And I was listening to this podcast whilst running once, which talked about efficient prompting. And the person there basically said that those things that you're in the role of used to work. Like, it's very hard to have studies on this topic, because it's very hard to compare statistically significant data. Like, they usually use math models behind it because it's more easily comparable. But basically, those things, they used to work apparently, but now they don't work as well as they used to, and it doesn't really make a difference anymore. And the best way would be to have a step-by-step guide for the AI to work through, basically. So I took this new approach, and I split the prompt into 2 steps, since I was now focusing on JSON primarily as the source of truth. I told the AI how to prepare it, and then in the second step, really care about the implementation. And what I also noticed, the agent automatically iterates over its implementation. So if you, as a first draft, get an output which has, 15 errors, which often happens, it will run the get errors tool and just iterate over it again, read through the code, figure out what's wrong, and solve it until it compiles properly. So here's an excerpt from my JSON prep. For example, I realized that empty name properties or properties, objects that just contain a name property and nothing else would lead to weird results on the AI front. Like for example, with the toggle before, this was a case like that. Or we have icons, ds icon 16 checkmark with different type outline, and it should map to ds icon 16 checkmark underscore outline. And the AI wouldn't grasp on that without this guidance, and it wouldn't know which variant of that icon to pick, basically. And I also generated, design system names for all properties with some rules. But what I realized, the AI was unreliable in processing the JSON. It sometimes is 1,000 or 2,000 lines long, and sometimes it would just ignore certain parts of it. But I knew I needed this to be perfect because it's my first step before the implementation. The implementation is obviously based off of it. And then I thought about it again, and I realized I don't need AI at all for this. It's just JSON parsing and converting. So I just put all my steps into ChatGPT, generated a Python script for me, and I used that. It worked out of the box, no compile errors, and no AI in use now, but it works. So my full workflow now is I have my Figma JSON as input, my Python script that transforms it to some process JSON, basically. I use this in my prompt, and I get the result. Much leaner than before, and to be honest, I was a bit sad that I had to ditch away the more complex approach because I thought it's cooler, but it is what it is. Now, a live demo. Oof. Let's hope it works. So I have a screen ready. I picked a complex one. Like this is our pet profile, and it's the empty version of it. Yes, I tried it before the presentation, of course, but I thought if I pick a simple screen with just 2 UI elements, of course it's gonna work. So I want to give something more realistic. Here I have my JSON snapshots plugin, and I just select the whole screen here, as you can see. Click copy JSON to clipboard. Then I have my design JSON. I paste it in. Then I run my Python script. Generates me the processed JSON. It should be, I'll quickly search for it. It should be here. Yeah, I named it designjson.json. I should change that. And then I just copy it over. Here I have the agent mode activated. I disable the context because I think it's better, to be honest, because it's less, like the context window is smaller. And then I just copy paste my JSON in there. Because I realized if I provide the context here and not provide the JSON in the prompt, it would ignore parts of it sometimes. You get better results if you really copy it fully in there. And then I let it run. And now it does its work. We can look at the Copilot instructions. So I can show you, like whilst it's generating, how my prompting looks like right now. So here, as I said before, I just have some comment information which says design to code, do what's defined under the section design to code, and the user has to provide a JSON that contains the Figma design. And I have a second task, translate, which basically uses our own strings that we have on Android. You have them in XML, and we have them for every feature so that we can directly set them. Oh, fuck. So as a first step, I would just really focus on the implementation part, and then with hard-coded strings, and then match those hard-coded strings with strings that we have available in the app. I think it's better to have that in 2 steps because otherwise it would run in the oops, out of tools, error, whatever. And here I've defined some rules. I don't know if that helps anything because I wrote very, very important in all caps, and I've noticed in the past it ignores that. Oh, sorry, let's quickly. Here you can see many many compilation errors, but it will iterate over it. If it dies, I'll just write continue, and it will fix those errors. But back to the instructions. And then I've told it, hey, use the components map in the JSON as a reference. So I generate a components map here that contains all the design system elements we have, like the implementations and the paths to it. So it saves on lookups, or at least that's my hope. And then yeah, we have some exception for the avatar, pet avatar component, which doesn't have a real design system component implementation, whatever, but that's not important. But more important or more interesting would probably be, for example, on Figma, title L semi-bold would translate to us to DS text style, title L dot semi-bold. So I gave it some guidance there, how to translate texts, for example. Or colors, never use hard-coded colors, use our token colors. Or icon names, you can find all the icons in the icon names array here in the JSON. Sometimes still ignores it, but at least I tried. Okay, hello. And for example, the package import, for us, we have a guideline that icons should use design system r.drawable instead of r.drawable. And like those small exceptions I just told the AI about. And it will hopefully, oh yeah, now we have the maximum tool attempts error, but it doesn't matter, the initial creation was done. So that's the most important part. Now I just tell it to continue, and it will read, for example, DS list item. Yeah, right now it reads DS list item, looks up that file, how is DS list item data defined, or basically tries to resolve the compilation errors. If it really fails badly, which I obviously don't hope, I have a backup, but let's see how it works. And is there any question right now? Because we have to wait a little. Yes?
I've played around with this myself, but with the web development side of things. And the Figma MCP actually supports you selecting a frame and telling it to, I have a frame selected, please implement this. So I don't know if this generates the same JSON as the plugin you have, and the post-processing step it for sure doesn't do. But that's maybe a thing you could try to automate it even more.
When did you try? Because I tried it early July, like I mentioned before, and it would sometimes grab some JSON, but the JSON would be, or at least from my experience, somewhat incomplete and not as usable as the full output I get with the plugin, for example.
I never looked at the JSON. It was right around when they released the feature. I've never looked at the history of the chat. I just saw that it generated stuff that could work if our style guide would have been using the same system than the design file itself. So we could never use it because of the discrepancy between the two design systems. But the code it generated, except that, would have pretty much worked.
Yeah, but then I think you're in a similar boat than we are here with Android, because it also generates usable code, but the design system mapping doesn't work. Like, you need the intermediate step, for us at least, because in my initial test it would sometimes create components out of nowhere because it didn't find them. So this pre-processing basically was needed. But there is this, is it called Code Connect? There's something that Figma promotes, which is pretty early on, which would go in that direction, that you can easily connect it with your design system. I'll let it build real quick. And you can use that, but you have to, at least on Android side, I looked at it, annotate every property basically, or everything with, like, put an annotation there, tell it how it maps, which in our case at least would be quite tedious. Okay, first run, let's see. Now the translations you can see here, there are hard-coded texts, which for the most part will be gone once we run the translate task, or so I hope. Let's see. I can already see it messed up something, but I'll show you the true result. I think it's, yeah, here, like the first, I'll quickly whip out the design for reference. So the top part, it used a column here instead of a row that's scrollable. Then the lower part, it got right, I think, with the icons. The spacing is not correct, and the corner radius, it always misses out in the corner radius. And the photos at the bottom, somehow I called it galleries. it's scrollable, so that works correctly. But usually, if I tell it now, hey, the to-do section should be a scrollable row and check the size of it, it should work. I'll drop the mic real quick to type it. Let's see if it fixes it correctly. And then we can run the translation and then, let's see. Oh, now it looks at the design JSON, which is the pre-processed one. Let's see if it works. Because that's a bit of an issue with everything you do with AI. The results are always somewhat different. Like you get it on a range, I would say. I'll just accept this for now. It's missing an import, but I think it's gonna solve that really quick. But that's like the whole problem I have even right now. I tried it several times already, and I get results like the one I just showed you, which is more on the worse side, to be honest. But it's still usable. Like I said, you need to adjust some spacing, you need to adjust the corner radius, the strings, the icons are already correctly set. It just saves you some tedious manual work you usually have to do. So if I relaunch this, let's see if it does it. I know the size is wrong because it should be 114 dp, but it sets it to 200. But I'll just give it a try. Whilst this is still building, I can show you, like if I write the translate task, I'm not gonna run it right now, I'll wait for it to build. But here I figured that it's important to add the correct strings as a context, and it would be great to have this out of the box already available. Like that you can provide files as context via a prompt, but it's not possible. Yeah, now it fixed it somewhat. The sizing is not correct, but overall it looks, for 5 minutes or however it took, it looks quite promising, I would say. So here, I'm already in the file. I'll just say translate now. And what it should do is pick all the matching strings from the design. But unfortunately, for some reason, for example, photos was converted to galleries. I don't know why. The AI thought it's called galleries, but it's defined in the JSON as photos. So I hope it will still figure some out. Usually that runs quite fast. I'll add this here as a context so I can switch files. Meanwhile, it's still working, we can go through some learnings, I guess. Let's just go through them first and then pick up on the result after. So what I learned myself is if you have a big task, break it into simple steps that the AI can follow. Like I said, with, for example, the pre-processing or the implementation part. Then, of course, only use AI where necessary, because I think it's easy to get lost into, okay, I'm going to solve this with AI, or I know I need it at some point, that you get into the mindset of everything needs to be AI, but you get reliable results without it. Then, of course, try out different models you have access to. Keep the prompt concise. As I showed you before, my prompt is now maybe 30 lines long instead of 2.5 pages, and it's working much better and more reliable. And also, in the case of Copilot, it outputs every step, every file it reads, everything it does pretty much. So you can always question it, ask it, why did you do this? What made you think that this maps to that, etc., which is quite helpful. You can kind of work with that and then improve your prompting or maybe provide with initial resources. And what I also realized, or what my future approach would be for things like this, is provided with as much context as you have, like for example with the MCP, the JSON, and whatever. I think was a good approach because I could see what it would actually use. But I don't know, on the flip side, it could also mean that the AI was overwhelmed with context. I'm not sure on that, but I think it made it better to use the shotgun approach and then figure out what is actually used. At least that's how I perceive it. Now here you can see it imports the strings and uses them in some occasions. Here it uses, okay, barely used it, to be honest. That was really a bad run. But it used it somewhere at least and removed the hard-coded strings. This one, home, for example, should have been replaced as well. Gallery, of course. I don't know. It was a bit of a bad run. But I can show you the fallback. Here, of course, everything worked fine. But trust me, I really generated it once, and it was just perfect output, and then I knew I had to save it. But here, for example, it replaced every string, except for pet name, for example. At the top, it would say, it would say pet name. It's Cooper. It's just something it picked. Yeah, but that's... gotta get back to the presentation. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Thank you. It was really cool to see how it works together, like how design finally gets into the code. Yeah, it's so cool. I didn't work with design for a long time, so yeah. Thanks, Rene, for sharing. Do you have any questions?
Yes. What do you mean with the editor? Because I'm aware that here I have the 0 out of 5. I can connect it like here in the Copilot, but that's, I don't know if it's different. For
example, in Windsor, you can directly connect the view with the editor, and I think you can avoid the step of the JSON, copy the JSON and provide it as a prompt.
I mean, here I can use, like here, I guess the get code connect map would be similar, or get code. But I tried this, like here now I have everything enabled, and that's how I tried it initially. But there is no other option, at least on Android Studio right now. So probably maybe Windsurf connects better. I'm not sure, or is it different there? Like
I think Windsurf connects directly to the MCP, and actually it even creates a plan view. So you will not even type the big prompt. You just type implement this, implement that, and Windsurf create the whole plan for you and visualization the JSON. And actually it doesn't generate something perfect. But yeah, something maybe as a shortcut to type the whole plan and the JSON.
But did you try it with like the design system, like we here have, for example, if it works?
I tried it on a side project. It was not complicated at all, but this one I think it's way more complicated than the one I tried on.
Yeah, because for example, here in Android Studio, you can, like they recently supported this, that you provide an image of the design and it will create a compose code for it. But with all these solutions, we have the troubles that we need to map to our design system at the end of the day. Because, for example, as a base, even with the verse one that's created, empty, sorry. For example, here as a base, we have the common lazy list scaffold, which is our own implementation. And I told it in the prompt that as a base component or as a wrapping component, it should always use a common scaffold, or if it's the screen, it should be scrollable, a common lazy scaffold. So I think those things, for example, could be missed by the direct integration, or because it has no knowledge about the concrete implementation of the design system. I assume at least. At least that's my experience with the one I tried here, but I haven't tried Windsurf.
Actually, that's true. And in Windsurf, you can actually edit on the plan and rerun.
And sorry, you can?
Re-edit the plan, like edit the plan and type the things
So you can basically let it learn. Does it save it for future runs as well, or?
Create a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can edit on the plan and rerun the
Okay, that's interesting. I think it's not available for Android, I assume, but it would still be interesting. I guess you could still open the project in there, and then maybe that's worth checking out. I also recently learned about Firebender, which is specifically tailored for Android, but I've read mixed things about it, which it also goes more in that direction. So, yeah. But thanks for bringing it up.
very good presentation.
Thank you.
Have you tried to generate an image by ChatGPT for this promo and check if it's similar to your UI?
Generate the image based on what? Like
The promo that ChatGPT suggests.
what?
Is it similar to the interface you expect?
Like if I would here type generate, I'm not sure if if it's possible. I'll just ask it. Can you generate an image? Ooh.
You need to make an exclamation mark.
Add, please.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Preview the design in Android Studio since I run the app. Yeah, unfortunately not. Because I think outside this chat box, I would need to fit in the context somehow. But it would be interesting actually how it views it.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, very impressive how well the design was made. Second question, you achieved using the Microsoft GitHub Copilot agent. Have you also tried to use the JetBrains AI? Like there's this Juni Pro, I think it's called.
No, I have not tried it. Do we have this? Okay, we have it, but I did not try this yet, no.
All right.
Yeah. Two questions here.
Just a very quick thing, Juni does not support MCP, so...
Yeah, that's why I didn't try it.
I also have two questions. How often do you run out of tools?
I mean, rarely actually. I had this case only once today, but never before. But I think today the case was different because I played around with pasting the JSON again, like in follow-up prompts. For example, if I typed in continue, I thought maybe providing the JSON again, since it's part of the prompt, and before it would lose some context, it would generate better results, but it led to maximum token reached, start a new session.
And my second question, how much % of all prompts you make you are crying or you're frustrated what the answers not that you want?
Sorry, how many?
% of all your prompts are not good.
Like if I input here design to code and then let it generate, I think like the result that it gave right now is more on the bad side, but at least being a developer myself, I think it's still usable because the core structure is there. Like I said, it needs some spacing. I know it looked ugly with the column instead of row that's scrollable, but those things, like for me, it's more important that the icons are set, the design system components are correctly used. Like for example here, the ones that were wrong, we're using this DS item action card, and there you have to provide this DS item action card data. So it's all like tedious things that you don't think much about it, you just write it down, and it's good that it takes care of it. I mean, I don't think with the state it is right now, you won't be in a state where, unless for very simple screens, it generates output that you don't need to adapt at all. But I'm questioning whether or not that's even the goal, because I think it still makes sense to look over it and check it. Also the implementation itself, for example, for gallery, I don't know if it did it here. Yeah, it also said, okay, I need 4 gallery image items, and there's this shorthand version. Instead of writing it 4 times, it noticed, hey, I can create these items with 4 iterations, post that, which is quite nice actually. But code quality is, yeah, it needs some refactoring basically.
So you like to use that?
I mean, we haven't used it in production yet, but I would say if it gets a little bit easier, because I think it's easy to forget to run the, like copy paste the JSON. You could get this via the Figma API, for example. And like those steps that you need to do manually, if they could be reduced a little, and I would be more in favor of using it. I mean, I myself use it already, but it's, yeah, those steps that you might miss. I've done them so many times already, so yeah.
Okay, thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just. Okay.
So I think the result is pretty impressive, as you just mentioned, considering the design token usage. I could imagine that, I mean, this is a pretty standard use case, right? Because mostly you use some kind of design tokens or like some predefined components. And you show like your learning curve, like and all the different steps that you went through. Did you have some kind of like guidance? Did you find any material on the topic, or was it really just you like looking into it, trying different things out?
I think it, like originally, I looked into plugins or other things that were available. For example, from Google, they had Relay, I think it was called, where you could connect Figma to Android Studio and it would generate compose code for you. But that was, as everything by Google, deprecated pretty fast. So then I just thought I'll just give it a try with Copilot. Once I saw the agent, I thought it would be feasible, but I didn't have a, like some article or so, you know, as a guidance. So I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have taken the long, all those steps, but yeah, that's how I just played around with it a lot, asked it a lot why it did what, and tried to reframe my prompting or think about what could I use. That's how I went with it.
And I think we'll have a last question. So.
Yes, I guess, first of all, congratulations. I think you really made the bookmark prompting learning curve experience out of my experience that I've had with people that I saw learning it. So really nice intuitions you have, and a really nice programming thinking task that split everything. And I think one question would be, how much time do you save like on a daily basis, not considering that you spend like, I guess, 20 hours on finding out everything. The second thing I guess I want to ask or talk about is like thinking. So maybe also as a recommendation, we have something very complex in the prompt. You could do beforehand, think about the problem, and it does not only have a very good helping point for the model, because the model generates its own content. It also gives you the possibility to read where it went wrong. Because if you say, for example, anonymization, and you say, hey, list all the things you should anonymize, then it creates a list, and if it misses something, it's obviously not seeing it. And then the second step would be do it actually. Then you have a good logging output of whatever it is doing, and that helps, especially with like more complex tasks. But I think it was also a very, very good idea to define this too.
But do you mean that I would introduce a new step here? For example, initially tell it, hey,
Yes.
think about the problem, or
In a nutshell, that's what they sneakily did with thinking models, because nowadays, like GPT 2.5, I mean, you see it better with 4.1 in the Azure thing, and they just take the same model and just make it think about creating thinking models before they do the actual task. So if you think of all three model thinking models, they're just like the base model plus iterate over whatever you do. So you can do that on your own if you just put a thinking in here. It's just like, if you think of it like a debugging session. Like what steps do you see? What points in the JSON you see that might be this or that? What things you wonder why doesn't it notice it? Just put it as a thing. And then you see why it's not. doing it, or it creates its own context and it's maybe a little better.
So it, so it's more like debug logs, basically, you can imagine it, or...
Yes, but you also said a very, very, very good sentence when you said the better context I give it, the less tools it needs. So the better you set it on its path, the less likely it generates token and I'm not putting it in a good path. So it's if you think of it as a glorified token generator. So you want to give the context, so it's kind of de-roll itself by generating not very predictable tokens. So the first question is, how much time do you estimate on saving? Except
I don't know.
If you didn't do like all the other evaluation tasks, just like, okay, what would it take you to create a file like this?
To be honest, I thought of maybe giving it a try, like with a new screen design, implement it myself, and then let it generate and refactor it. But I haven't tried it yet, so I can't. I don't want to say anything that I don't know. So,
but another question: do you think it's good for like juniors to give them like a good guide rail, and then try to if they don't know what to do, then give them something and then say, hey, refactor this code, and then like give them a little bit of a lessons learned on what you then still would refactor further. Do you think that perhaps people learn actually?
It's a difficult one. I think it really depends on how the person is motivated, you know. If you come more from the, okay, I'll let it generate everything for me and whatever, I don't really care, then no. But if the person is really, okay, I'm gonna try this first and then see what the solution would be, then yes. But I don't know. I can't say from the top of my head at least.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, let's just... Just give me a second. So, this is a special gift, and I hope you paid attention to the best question today, because it's not gonna be a mug, it's gonna be the same t-shirt, so it's kind of unique. But so what was the best?
I have to pick it, or?
Yes.
I don't know, I mean, I liked it, but now I'm biased because the last one sticks more. But I liked it more because of the input with the thinking mode. But that was more guidance and yeah, I don't know.
So, with big power, speaking power, comes the great responsibility, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just give it to you. I hope nobody's pissed, but.
And you have a full house. Unfortunately, we don't have it yet. So now the plan will be to... So I was in contact with Santosh. He said that basically he has electricity issues in the house. So it looks like he is not going to wrap up his talk. And now we have like 3 minutes preparation for something I call late night show. So the entertainment part, it's gonna be short, so it's like a comedy version of our tech talks, but I hope you like it. Do you by any chance know the show on YouTube? It's called Between Two Ferns. So it's pretty similar. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.